Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Silent Heroes Stories, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about a dog, it's about the one thing that kept a boy alive when the world stopped caring. The first time they tried to take Ranger, it was raining, not a gentle rain, the kind that turns sidewalks into mirrors and makes every streetlight look like a blurry halo. The kind that finds every hole in your jacket and reminds you that you don't belong anywhere warm. 16-year-old Caleb Mercer stood under the overpass with his hands curled into fists inside his sleeves, shoulders raised against the cold. His backpack, his whole life, was pressed against the concrete behind him. A torn sleeping bag sat in a heap to his left. And right beside Caleb, calm as a statue, sat Ranger. A German shepherd with a black canine vest that didn't fit him anymore, like it belonged to a different life. His ears were up, eyes steady, posture controlled. Not wild, not stray, not dangerous. Disciplined, like he'd been trained to listen for trouble before it arrived. Caleb didn't even notice the two cars at first. He was staring at the rain, counting the seconds between passing headlights, anything to keep his mind off hunger. But Ranger noticed. His head turned slightly, his nose lifted. A quiet, low rumble vibrated in his chest. Barely audible, but enough to make Caleb's spine stiffen. "Easy," Caleb whispered automatically, as if Ranger needed calming. Ranger didn't move. He just watched. The first car stopped at the curb, a county vehicle. The second was a police cruiser. Caleb's stomach dropped, not because he'd done anything wrong, because he had learned something hard at 16. You didn't have to do anything wrong for the world to decide you were a problem. A woman stepped out of the county car, mid-30s, raincoat, clipboard pressed to her chest like armor. She looked tired but determined in that way people get when they think they're doing the right thing. Behind her came a police officer, hand resting near his belt, not threatening, just ready. "Caleb Mercer," the woman called, voice raised over the rain. Caleb didn't answer right away. Ranger's eyes stayed locked on them. The woman took a few careful steps closer, stopping just beyond Ranger's reach. "My name is Ms. Harlan. I'm with Youth Services." Caleb let out a short laugh that had no humor in it. "Yeah? Congratulations." Ms. Harlan ignored the tone like she'd heard it 100 times. "We've been looking for you. You can't stay out here." Caleb looked down at Ranger, then back up. "Watch me." The officer shifted slightly. Ms. Harlan sighed. "Caleb, you're a minor. You're in danger. We have a placement for you." Caleb's throat tightened. "I'm not going back." "We're not talking about that foster home," she said quickly, reading the change in his face. "This is different." Caleb's eyes hardened. "It's always different." Then Ms. Harlan's gaze dropped, just for a second, to Ranger's vest. To the dog sitting too still, too trained, too aware. Her voice softened. "And the dog, Caleb, you can't keep him." Everything inside Caleb went cold. Ranger's ears twitched. Caleb stepped forward instinctively, blocking Ranger with his body even though Ranger didn't need blocking. "Don't," he warned. Ms. Harlan held up a hand. "No one wants to hurt him. But he's not registered to you. He's clearly a former police K9. If he's unhandled..." "He's handled," Caleb snapped. "By me." The officer finally spoke. "Kid, where did you get that dog?" Caleb swallowed. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He didn't get Ranger. Ranger got him. 3 months earlier, when Caleb was sleeping behind a closed gas station with nothing but a hoodie and an empty stomach, he'd heard the sound of paws on gravel. He'd sat up ready to run until he saw Ranger. The dog had been limping, thin, a raw scrape along his shoulder, his vest torn like someone had tried to rip it off. He'd looked at Caleb like he recognized loneliness. Caleb had whispered, "Go away." Ranger hadn't. He'd simply sat down a few feet away, close enough to protect, far enough to not scare. And when two men had wandered into the alley later that night, Ranger had stood between them and Caleb without making a sound. After that, Ranger never left. So when Ms. Harlan said, "We're going to take him somewhere safe," Caleb felt like she was saying, "We're going to remove the only reason you survived." "No," Caleb said, voice shaking now. "He stays." Ms. Harlan glanced at the officer. "Caleb, please. If you come with us, we can—" Caleb's eyes burned. "You don't get it. He's not a pet. He's not a thing you can rehome. He's all I've got." Ranger rose slowly to his feet, not lunging, not barking, just standing tall beside Caleb, shoulder aligned with his leg like a soldier taking position. The officer took one involuntary step back, because even without aggression, Ranger looked like a dog that had seen real danger, and didn't flinch anymore. Ms. Harlan tried again, gentle but firm. "Caleb, he could be confiscated." Caleb's breath came shallow. "Then you'll have to take me too." And for the first time, Ranger made a sound, a single sharp bark, controlled, precise, like a warning that this line mattered. Rain poured harder. The world held its breath, and none of them realized yet. They weren't looking at a troubled teen refusing help. They were looking at a boy and a dog who had already saved each other once and were about to do it again. The rain kept falling. Not one of them moved. Ms. Harlan lowered her clipboard slightly, studying the scene in front of her more carefully now. This wasn't a runaway teen acting out. This wasn't a stray dog guarding food. This was something else. The officer cleared his throat. "Caleb, let's talk, all right? Just talk." Caleb didn't answer. His hand rested lightly on Ranger's collar, not pulling, not holding him back, just touching. Like reassurance flowed both ways. Ranger stayed rigid, eyes locked on the adults, every muscle prepared but restrained, a trained restraint. The kind that didn't come from fear, but from discipline. Ms. Harlan noticed it too. "That dog's had formal training," she said quietly. "A lot of it." Caleb's voice cracked despite himself. "Yeah, and he doesn't have anyone left either." That was the first crack in the wall. They moved the conversation under the overpass, out of the rain. Ms. Harlan signaled the officer to give them space. He stepped back, but not far. Ranger tracked every movement until he stopped. "Caleb," Ms. Harlan said gently, "I need you to understand something. Dogs like him don't just end up on the street." Caleb scoffed. "People end up on the street too. Nobody seems confused about that." She didn't argue. "When did you meet him?" she asked. Caleb hesitated. Ranger sat, waiting. 3 months ago, Caleb said, behind a gas station. "Ms." Harlan's eyebrows rose slightly. "And before that?" Caleb shook his head. "He never told me." For the first time since the cars arrived, something almost like a smile flickered across Ranger's face. If dogs could smile. Ms. Harlan exhaled slowly. "Caleb, K9 units don't just disappear. If Ranger was injured, retired improperly, or abandoned, there will be records." Caleb stiffened. "You're going to take him." "I'm going to find out who failed him," she corrected. The difference mattered. They drove them to a temporary shelter, not a kennel, a municipal building with heaters and coffee that tasted like cardboard. Ranger stayed glued to Caleb's side the entire time. Every volunteer noticed. "He doesn't break heel," one whispered. "That's a working dog," another said. Ranger ignored them all. He only watched Caleb. A city veterinarian examined Ranger carefully. Old scars, healed fractures, wear patterns that spoke of years of service. "He's not aggressive," the vet said. "He's exhausted." Ms. Harlan stared at the notes. "Can you tell how old he is?" 7, maybe 8. Caleb swallowed. "He's been working longer than I've been alive." That thought hit him harder than hunger ever had. While Ranger rested on a blanket beside him, Caleb finally talked. About his mother disappearing when he was 12, about the foster homes that blurred together, about the last one, where locking his door at night hadn't helped. "And when I left," Caleb said quietly, "nobody came looking." Ranger's head lifted slightly. Ms. Harlan folded her hands. But Ranger did. Caleb nodded. He stayed. That night, Ranger woke suddenly. Not barking, not whining. He rose and stood over Caleb's sleeping form, scanning the room like something invisible had changed. And outside, in the parking lot, a black SUV idled longer than it should have. Ranger's ears pinned forward. Something from his past had finally caught up. Ranger didn't bark. He didn't growl. But his body changed. The muscles along his spine tightened, ears angled sharply toward the parking lot, every instinct pulled forward like a wire drawn too tight. Caleb felt it immediately. Even in his sleep, something deep inside him recognized danger. Ranger stepped closer to the door, watching, waiting. The black SUV idled for nearly a full minute before the engine finally shut off. A man stepped out slowly, moving with the stiffness of someone who carried old injuries. He wore a jacket that was too heavy for the weather and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Ms. Harlan noticed him from the window. Her stomach tightened. He didn't look lost. He looked like someone who knew exactly where he was going. Inside, Ranger let out a low sound, barely audible, but full of recognition. Not fear. Memory. The man entered the building without hesitation, scanning the room until his eyes landed on Ranger. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the man swallowed hard. Ranger, he whispered. The name hit the air like a dropped plate. Caleb sat up instantly. You know him? Ranger took one step forward, then stopped, waiting for a command that never came. The man removed his cap. His hair was grayer now, his face harder, but his eyes were the same ones Ranger had watched for years. Hey, boy, the man said quietly. It's me. Ranger didn't approach. He stood perfectly still, chest rising slowly, tail low but steady. Ms. Harlan stepped between them. Sir, who are you? The man exhaled. My name is Officer Mark Halverson. I was his handler. Caleb's heart slammed against his ribs. You abandoned him, Caleb said before he could stop himself. Halverson flinched like he'd been struck. I didn't want to, he said hoarsely. I got injured overseas. Medical discharge. They told me Ranger would be reassigned. Then why was he bleeding behind a gas station? Caleb shot back. Silence. Halverson looked at Ranger again. They shut the unit down. Budget cuts. Paperwork got lost. I was in rehab. By the time I got out, his voice cracked. He was gone. Ranger's ears twitched. He understood one thing clearly. The voice was familiar. The bond was broken. You came to take him back, Caleb said, his hands shaking. Halverson shook his head slowly. No, I came because I heard there was a K9 here protecting a kid, like it was his mission. He looked at Caleb then, really looked. And I realized Ranger already found his next assignment. Ranger finally moved. He walked to Caleb's side, sat, leaned against his leg. The decision was made. Ms. Harlan's voice softened. Ranger chose. Halverson nodded, tears slipping down his face. He always does. That night, Ranger slept deeper than he had in months, because for the first time, his past and his present had met and chosen the same future. Morning came gray and heavy, the kind of morning that doesn't promise anything good. Caleb woke to the sound of papers shuffling and low voices. Ranger was already awake, sitting upright beside him, eyes fixed on the doorway. Ms. Harlan stood there with two other adults Caleb didn't recognize. One wore a city badge, the other carried a laptop and a stack of folders. Caleb's chest tightened. This isn't good news, he said quietly. Ms. Harlan hesitated. Caleb, we have a situation. Ranger's ears angled forward. They sat at a plastic table under buzzing fluorescent lights. Everything felt temporary, like a place where decisions happened about you, never with you. The city technically owns Ranger, the man with the badge explained. He's a former K9. That means he can't just be placed with a minor. Caleb's hands curled into fists. He already is. That's not how the system works, the man replied flatly. Ranger shifted closer. Caleb felt the warmth at his side. Ms. Harlan spoke carefully. "They're recommending Ranger be transferred to a retirement kennel while we find a long-term placement for you." The words hit harder than any insult. "A kennel?" Caleb whispered. "After everything?" Ranger let out a low sound, not aggressive, but deeply unhappy. Halverson, standing against the wall, stepped forward. "With all due respect," he said, "that dog won't survive another separation." The official frowned. "Emotion isn't policy." Halverson's jaw tightened. "Neither is loyalty, but Ranger saved lives because of it." Caleb's voice broke. "He saved mine." Silence fell. They tried the leash next. A gentle approach, they said. Ranger didn't move. The leash went taut. Ranger sat, unyielding, not growling, not resisting, refusing. The room shifted. People exchanged looks. Someone whispered, "He's choosing." Ms. Harlan looked at the data on her clipboard again, then at Caleb, then at Ranger. "What if," she said slowly, "we stop trying to separate what's clearly working?" The man with the badge frowned. "You're suggesting—" "A joint placement," she finished. "Housing that accepts animals. A legal guardian structure. Ranger remains registered as a retired service dog under supervision." Caleb's breath caught. Ranger's tail moved once. It took hours. Calls were made, papers revised, rules bent in places they'd never bent before. Not because of sympathy, because of proof. Proof sitting calmly at Caleb's side. By evening, Ms. Harlan knelt in front of Caleb. "It's conditional," she said. "But you're staying together." Caleb couldn't speak. Ranger pressed his head against Caleb's chest. Home didn't look like a house yet, but it finally felt possible. The apartment wasn't much. Second floor, cracked linoleum. A heater that rattled like it might give up any day. The view was a brick wall and a fire escape that creaked when the wind blew. But it had two things Caleb had learned to value more than anything else: a lock on the door and permission to stay. Ranger stepped inside first, as he always did. Not charging, not sniffing wildly. He walked the perimeter slowly, methodically. Corners, windows, bathroom, closet. He checked everything like he had been trained to do a lifetime ago. Only when he finished did he return to Caleb's side and sit, clear, safe. Caleb dropped his backpack on the floor and laughed, an unfamiliar sound, rough around the edges. "I guess this is it," he said. Ranger's tail thumped once. The first few nights were hard. Caleb woke at every sound. Sirens in the distance, voices in the hallway, the thud of footsteps above them. Each time, Ranger lifted his head, listened, then rested his chin back on the floor. It was enough. For the first time in years, Caleb slept through the night. School came next. A temporary placement, they called it. Catch-up classes. Counselors who spoke softly and tried not to look shocked when Caleb flinched at sudden movements. Ranger waited outside the building every afternoon, rain or shine, sitting, watching. Some kids whispered, some laughed, some stared, but none of them came too close. Not because Ranger was aggressive, because Ranger was certain. One afternoon, a boy about Caleb's age approached cautiously. "Is he dangerous?" he asked. Caleb looked down at Ranger, then back up. "Only if you're a bad idea." The boy nodded, understanding without explanation. Ms. Harlan checked in often. "So far," she said one day, smiling, "you're our most stable placement." Caleb snorted. "Guess I just needed the right roommate." Ranger looked up at the sound of his voice. The city finalized Ranger's status a month later. Retired service K9, companion placement approved. Caleb held the paper with shaking hands. "They can't take you anymore," he whispered. Ranger leaned into him, solid and warm. He had never planned on leaving anyway. Something else changed too. People started noticing how Ranger watched. At the grocery store, on the bus, at the park. They noticed how he positioned himself between Caleb and the world, how he reacted to raised voices, how he leaned in when Caleb's breathing changed. A counselor mentioned it quietly. "He's regulating you," she said, "helping your nervous system settle." Caleb shrugged. "He's just there." She smiled. "That's usually how it works." One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the apartment in gold, Caleb sat on the floor working through homework he never thought he'd catch up on. Ranger lay beside him, eyes half closed. Caleb paused. "You know," he said softly, "they tried to take you." Ranger opened one eye. "Didn't work," Caleb finished. Ranger's tail thumped. For the first time, the future didn't feel like something waiting to hurt him. It felt open. And Ranger stayed right there. The night started like any other, too quiet. Caleb noticed it first. The apartment building usually carried sound. Arguments through thin walls, televisions left on too loud, someone laughing in the hallway. That night, there was nothing. Just the hum of the heater and the soft ticking of the kitchen clock. Ranger lifted his head slowly. Not alert, concerned. Caleb had learned the difference. "What is it?" he whispered. Ranger didn't look at him. He was staring at the door. A muffled sound came from the hallway. Footsteps, heavy, unsteady. They stopped right outside Caleb's door. Ranger stood, his body positioned instantly between Caleb and the entrance, stance wide, unmoving, not aggressive, ready. Caleb's heart slammed against his ribs. "Ranger," he breathed. The doorknob turned, once, twice. A pause, then pressure, someone leaning against it, testing. Ranger didn't bark. He waited. The sound of a bottle clinked against the door. A man's voice slurred quietly. "Open up, kid. I know you're in there." Caleb froze. He didn't recognize the voice. But Ranger did something Caleb had never seen before. He backed Caleb up, slowly, gently, until Caleb's shoulders hit the wall behind the couch. Ranger never took his eyes off the door. The handle twisted harder. That was when Ranger barked. One bark. Sharp, commanding, final. The sound cut through the hallway like a blade. Footsteps scrambled. A curse. Then running. Caleb slid down the wall, shaking. Ranger stayed at the door long after the sounds were gone. Only when the hallway returned to normal, only when danger had truly left, did he turn back. Ranger walked to Caleb, sat, pressed his forehead gently against Caleb's chest. Caleb broke. He wrapped his arms around Ranger's neck and cried into his fur, shoulders shaking with everything he had held in for years. "They tried to take you," he whispered, "and you still stayed." Ranger didn't move. He never did. The police arrived 10 minutes later. Break-ins had been reported in the building. Drunk, aggressive, unpredictable. "You're lucky," one officer said. "Could have been bad." Caleb looked at Ranger. "I wasn't lucky," he said quietly. "I was protected." That night, Caleb slept on the floor. Ranger lay beside him, breathing slow and steady. No nightmares, no fear, just warmth. In the morning, Ms. Harlan called. "We're upgrading your placement," she said. "Safer building, better area." Caleb hesitated. "Can Ranger come?" She smiled through the phone. "I wouldn't suggest it otherwise." When they moved 2 weeks later, the new place had sunlight, a small park across the street, neighbors who nodded instead of stared. Ranger approved instantly. Caleb watched him from the doorway. "You chose me," Caleb said softly. Ranger looked back, as if to say, "I always do." The new place smelled different, cleaner, warmer, safer. Morning light filled the small apartment, spilling across the floor and settling gently on Ranger's back as he lay near the window. Outside, the park was waking up, joggers passing by, a woman walking her dog, a child laughing somewhere in the distance. Caleb stood still for a moment, backpack hanging from one shoulder, taking it all in. This was real. This wasn't temporary. Ranger had already mapped the apartment. He knew which window caught the afternoon sun, which sounds belonged to neighbors, which ones didn't. He learned quickly, he always did. But what surprised Caleb most was how Ranger changed, not in vigilance, but in ease. He still watched doors, still listened at night, still positioned himself between Caleb and the world when voices got loud, but now he rested, deeply. School improved, not overnight, not magically, but teachers noticed something different. Caleb stayed seated longer. He didn't flinch as much. He raised his hand once, then twice. When a counselor asked what changed, Caleb shrugged. "I don't feel alone anymore." One afternoon, Ms. Harlan visited. She watched from the doorway as Ranger lay beside Caleb while he worked on homework, occasionally lifting his head when Caleb's breathing changed, then settling again. "You know," she said quietly, "we almost didn't approve this." Caleb looked up. "Why?" "Because the system doesn't like exceptions," she replied. "But sometimes, the system is wrong." Ranger didn't look at her. He was watching Caleb. Later that evening, Caleb sat on the floor, back against the couch. Ranger stretched out beside him. "Hey," Caleb said softly, "you ever think about leaving?" Ranger didn't move. "You could have gone back with him," Caleb continued. "With your old handler, a real house, a yard." Ranger turned his head and rested it on Caleb's leg. Heavy, certain. Caleb swallowed hard. "Yeah," he whispered, "me neither." Months passed, then a year. Caleb grew taller, stronger. His laugh came easier. His eyes didn't scan every room for exits anymore. Ranger's muzzle grayed slightly. His movements slowed just enough to notice. But his position never changed, still at Caleb's side, always. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the park in gold, Caleb and Ranger sat on a bench watching the world move by. A little boy tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, is that a police dog?" The woman smiled. "He looks like one." Caleb glanced down at Ranger and smiled too. "Yeah," he said quietly. "He is." Ranger leaned against him, not alert, not guarding. Home. They tried to take his dog away. They thought they were helping. They thought they knew better. What they didn't know was this: Ranger wasn't just a dog. He was the one who stayed when everyone else left. The one who stood between danger and a boy the world had forgotten. The one who chose family when he had every reason not to. And sometimes, family doesn't share your blood. Sometimes family sits beside you in the rain, stands between you and the dark and never lets go. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Silent Heroes Stories for more powerful stories about loyalty, courage, and the heroes who never walk away. Tell us in the comments, do you believe family is something you choose?